Since 1945, there has been peace in Western Europe. There has been travel and trade, understanding, harmony, and mutual respect. However, unnoticed by almost everyone, a small group of politicians had begun a project with an aim that would eventually become apparent.
We are determined to unify Europe and to unify it quickly. With the Schuman Plan and the European Army, we have laid the foundations upon which we shall build the United States of Europe.
The Treaty of Rome was signed in 1957, eliciting this response from the USA.
America would welcome it if Britain should apply for full membership, explicitly recognising that the Rome Treaty was not merely a static document, but a process leading towards political unification.
The first noticeable effect of the EU on Britain was when we had to go decimal in 1971 as a condition for joining the club. Ted Heath shoved Britain into the EEC without a referendum on the 1st of January 1973, happy to devastate Britain's fishing industry as a price worth paying for membership and knowingly handing over a sizable chunk of British sovereignty to Brussels. Ireland and Denmark, their economies both heavily dependent upon British trade, joined the same day. In 1975, the British were given a referendum on remaining in the EEC. The people voted to stay in the common market. However, more people voted to leave in 2016. During the 80s, no one paid much attention to the new treaties being signed, which led to the common market being expanded to 12 countries and rebranding itself the European Union. The UK attached its currency to the exchange rate mechanism, the precursor to the euro, which was, in turn, based on the Deutschmark. The exchange rate was artificially and disastrously high for sterling and proved unsustainable. George Soros engineered the crash of Black Wednesday in 1992 and pocketed for himself a cool £1 billion of UK taxpayers' money, as the John Major government desperately poured money in to prop up the pound.
The single market was the theme of the 80s. The single currency was the theme of the 90s. We must now face the very difficult task of moving towards a single economy, a single political unity.
Wars of independence have been fought for centuries. People want independence, self-determination and democracy. However, the EU's federalists believe that only by creating one country out of all the different languages, cultures and histories of Europe can peace be maintained. This is dangerous rubbish. And yet, supranational countries don't work. The federalists don't listen. They want power. The euro was introduced following the Maastricht Treaty, and it has proved to be an economic disaster in countries with weaker economies, such as Greece, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Valéry Giscard d'Estaing is attributed with the writing of the European Constitution. So what was it? Blair offered the British a referendum on the European Constitution, then shied away from this pledge, but it was enough to make Nicolas Sarkozy do the same. And both the French and the Dutch voted against it. The Federalists were told quite clearly not to proceed. So instead, by their own admission, they simply rewrote it as the Lisbon Treaty and made every Prime Minister sign it without it being put back to any electorate for approval.
Public opinion will be led to adopt, without knowing it, the proposals that we dare not present to them directly. All the earlier proposals will be in the new text, but will be hidden and disguised in some way.
A slight correction is due. The Irish had a national constitutional right to a referendum. They voted against the Lisbon Treaty, as they had with the Nice Treaty on European enlargement. And, as with the Nice Treaty, they were made to vote again. The Brexit debate is not about economics and trade, it is about politics and power. Politicians know what is in the Lisbon Treaty. It is the blueprint for the federal United States of Europe. Cameron knew what was in the Lisbon Treaty. Theresa May knows what is in the Lisbon Treaty. The EU is run by federalists like Juncker, Tusk, Verhofstadt. You have to be devoted to the European project to get on within the EU. Knowing that some of the contents of the Lisbon Treaty would be complete anathema to the British electorate, David Cameron raced around Europe in early 2016 and returned to announce that he had secured opt-outs from Lisbon Treaty elements, the Euro, the European Army, and ever closer union. And yet, while he was announcing these in triumph, so the entire Remain campaign was fought on a false prospectus because the opt-outs were bogus. Then came the largest democratic vote in British history. 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. The Federalists were rocked back on their heels.
There is no doubt that this is a turning point for Europe and a turning point for the European unification process.
So the cards are finally on the table. You either fully and unquestioningly with the European project or you go. A German politician told Radio 4 the Remain vote would have been an endorsement of the project, suggesting that Britain would also go forward full steam ahead with the Euro, Schengen, etc. But even if the Leave vote was a turning point, they didn't turn. And if Brexit is cancelled for any reason, we will become one of its provinces with no Calais border defences. We have already seen the effect on our schools, housing and the NHS that free movement has meant. If we are made to accept the European project, we would simply go bust. The European Commission has never submitted itself to election. The European Commission has never submitted itself to election.
The democratic experiment in Europe has failed. Time to move on to the post-democratic society.
The only handbrake on the acceleration of the European project is the veto that member states have. But the Commission is working on removing that. Juncker describes the removal of the veto as making a more democratic Europe. The European Commission has never submitted itself to election and probably never will. Please look at this very carefully. He is saying, Federal Europe or nothing. So where was the debate about the EU's plans and ambitions during the referendum campaign? There wasn't one. They didn't want you to know. But it is in everything they say, in everything they do, and in everything they say they are going to do. On the occasion of Angela Merkel's newly formed coalition government being established in Germany in March 2018, after Alternative für Deutschland had driven a wedge through the traditional cosy German political spectrum, Emmanuel Macron's spokesman said,
France and Germany will work together on new initiatives in the coming weeks to bring the European project forward.
We have to be clear about what the EU is, was, and will be. It has never been static and has continued developing since the 2016 referendum. It is ignoring the concerns of its electorates. It is not a body to be negotiated with. It doesn't believe in compromise. It doesn't even believe in the best for its citizens. In May of this year, Guy Verhofstadt made his feelings clear. The euro has been and continues to be a trap for all the democracies of Europe. What better way of controlling people than by controlling their money? Brexit is the battle for independence. It is the battle for democracy. It may well be the battle for survival.